Welcome to this mantra breathing session today. It's a beautiful day here in Washington, D.C., Saturday. Skies are blue. We're about to be going to the Middle East on Monday, and things are getting a little bit heated up over there. Communication, it's very interesting. Sometimes you think you're communicating clearly and you end up activating other people. And I think that this is one of the things that we have to deal with in communication is how do we respond when somebody gets angry with what we do or say, or maybe we don't intend, but they have a reaction. And then how do we respond to that? Because I think we all feel that's a tough situation in life, because we ourselves may not be feeling activated, and we may be trying to diffuse a situation, but people on the other side are very activated. So I think that we have written about this subject a lot, and also there's a lot in the Course in Miracles about how anger and attack, they seem like forms of communication, but actually they are breaking communication, because the root of what communication really means is communion or union. It's a form of uniting. It's a form of coming to one mind. That's what true communication is. And anger is the opposite of that. It's like the breaking of the communication. It's like a conflict between two opposing forces, right? So anger really is not a means of communication. It's the opposite of communication. And Sandra reminds me, it provokes separation. And what we're trying to do here in this breath work is to join, first of all, join the various levels within ourself, spirit, mind, and body, and be all unified and consistent in that system, you know. And then when we're interacting with other people, to join with them and have this harmonious exchange. And that's true communication. And the result of true communication is joy. And the nature of reality in our world anyway, and in the things that we study and with the masters that we follow, is that the nature of reality is peace and joy. That's the nature of the cosmos. So we want to align with that true nature, and anger, attack, discontent, dissatisfaction, all that is a breaking of communication. I was looking this week, Sandra has a lot of articles on her website. We've written a lot of blog articles, and so I was just kind of scanning down through those to see if there was anything that we needed to talk about in this mantra breathe. And I found this one that says, why is communication the essence of a relationship? We hear a lot of people's stories about how they're not happy in their relationship. And what's the cause of that? Usually it's they're not communicating. First of all, they spend very little time together. And then of that time that they spend together, they've been doing these studies, and they say like an average couple maybe only spends 30 minutes a day together. And of that 30 minutes, not even half of that is communicating. So 15 minutes a day communicating. And Sandra and I don't know, we have a different we have a different mode of relating because most of our day is about communicating. We're together all the time, and most of what we're exchanging and interacting is our communications to one another and communications to our network of people that we serve. So it's all about communication. In fact, you could say relationship is communication. And we try to, in most instances, get over an upset as fast as we can. So when we first got together, we actually made an agreement that we wanted to have a conflict-free relationship. And that was kind of a vow we took. So anytime we see ourselves with different opinions about something or varying, approaches to something, we stop right away and try to come to some harmony where we go to the highest thought and we work it out right away. We don't let it sit there and fester and get more charged up. We handle our differences right away. And I think because we do that, we've been pretty successful having a conflict-free relationship. Now, if something comes up and we really can't agree on it and we're seeing it very differently from two different sides, we take a time out. We say, okay, this is not worth us fighting over or getting upset about, but we see that we're not aligned. So we take a time out and we say, well, let's give it 24 hours and we'll revisit it later. So that's another technique we use to diffuse any upsets. You know, the Course in Miracles says you're never upset for the reason you think. So usually what's coming up in any upset or disagreement is we're being activated. Usually it's our personal lie coming up. We feel like not good enough, or we feel not heard, or we feel the other party is not seeing us correctly. And so we feel that, and that's upsetting us. It's not even the thing that's charging us in the moment. It's this other thing that's getting activated. And usually it's our personal lie. So one thing we've come up with, and some of you use this technique to your advantage, and I must say some of you have really mastered this, and we're really grateful that you apply it, because the tools only work when you use them, right? Is what we call the 8-minute process. And this 8-minute process, we try to employ what's called nonviolent communication. The process goes like this. One person listens to the other for 8 minutes, and then the other person talks for 8 minutes about anything that's on their mind. And the person listening cannot interrupt, cannot give comment, cannot plan or rebuttal, cannot have a reaction to what their partner is saying. They just want to take it in, listen, be totally present. And the person talking, you want to not use blaming or accusatory sentences. You don't want to use you sentences like you did this and you did that, and projecting guilt onto the party, your mate. You want to just say, I observe this happens, and when I observe this happens, I feel like this. And when I feel like this, it's like I could feel bad, I could feel sad, I could feel disregarded. There could be a lot of feelings that this thing coming up is forming in you. You just state them. I feel like this. And then you say, well, what I need or what I would recommend is this. And then you give your solution to that, right? How you would like to see it. How would you like to make a change? So you spend 8 minutes speaking like that about anything. It could be the issue at hand. It could also be related things. It doesn't matter. You can say anything you want as long as it's not blaming your partner for 8 minutes. And we've found that 5 minutes is not long enough and 10 minutes is too long. So 8 minutes is like the perfect amount of time. And you'll probably find after about 5 minutes, you might run out of things to say, but just go a little deeper and just sort of delve into, something that maybe you were afraid to say, but, now you can say it. You've got the floor, you've got your partner's attention. Okay, so now you've spent 8 minutes talking, and then you switch. Your partner now spends 8 minutes talking, and you have to do the same thing. You can't interrupt, you can't interject, you can't make bad faces, you can't get, activated about what they're saying. You just sit there and listen to them. And so once you've both had your 8 minutes, then you can have a discussion. Then you can revisit some of the things that you talked about and then employ the highest thought game. Like, what is the highest thought that we can have together that feels the best in our body and that's the solution for both of us? And you want to try to go back and forth and come to the highest thought. And usually this kind of communication can solve any relationship issue or any concern that you're having. So we call that the 8-minute process. Yeah, so this article is pretty good. I printed it out. It was on Sandra's blog on our website. Why is communication the essence of a relationship? Well, we would say that it's all the relationship. If you're not communicating, then you don't have a relationship. Communication is everything. And anger is not a form of communication. It's a form of breaking the communication. Yeah, so that's that. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about, I know it may sound a little silly, but you have to do things together that are fun. I mean, having fun, having joy, that's the highest form of communication and appreciation. So Sandra and I try to get in a habit of acknowledging each other for things that we do that we admire in the other person. Like Sandra loves fashion, as you all know, and she handles my wardrobe. And so I don't even have to think about it. She puts my clothes out for the next day on the bed. We have a guest room and she lays them out there. Of course, so I'll be color coordinated with her outfit, right? So things like that, I really appreciate. She handles the clothing, the laundry, anything related to our wardrobe, even to the degree that when we're going on a tour, she does the packing of what clothes she wants to take, even my own clothes. I mean, I do the packing of some of the things like microphones and, books and those sorts of things, but she does the clothes bit. And I'm constantly acknowledging her for that. And other people are too. Often she tells me she's walking to the grocery store and people stop her and say how well she's dressed, and they really appreciate it, so that part of her world, I really like, and I try to give her as much acknowledgement for those things as I can. And then the other place where I acknowledge her is when we give people private sessions. She's probably one of the best I've ever seen being able to reduce people's thoughts down to their most common denominator, and she can really uncover where people are stuck. She can process their case better than anyone I've ever seen. So she's able to kind of pull that out of people, and so I really admire her for that. So I'm often giving her acknowledgement for that. So, I mean, We have this saying, criticism kills relationships. Well, acknowledgement builds relationships. So acknowledgement, praise, appreciation, gratitude, those are really the beatitudes of a great relationship. So if you base your communication on those, your communication just gets better and better and better. But criticism, attack, anger, those things sever the communication. So you want to try to avoid those. And if you're having an issue and it's really something that's really bothering you, do the 8-minute process and get it out that way. And then it's on the table and you can deal with it. You can make the changes that you both need to make in order to come to this harmonious middle place where you're both feeling that's the highest thought. So this is how we handle it. And I think it would work for you if you just adopt this in your relationships. I mean, it's kind of a universal way of communicating that we've found over the years works really well for us. Now, other kind of little things that we do, both of us are very creative. I like to do painting and also writing, and I find that when I'm involved with that, I'm very happy. Same with Sandra. When she's writing something, she's very happy. So you have to find that sweet spot in your life of the things that you love to do, right? So when you're doing those, that's also a form of communication, because when you're engaged in your purpose, your divine purpose, your real purpose for being here, you benefit everybody around you, including mostly your mate. So when you're happy, happiness is a form of communication. When you're happy doing the things you love to do, your mate receives the benefit of that, and vice versa. When they're doing the things they love to do, you benefit from that. So happiness is a form of communication. And I just wanted to share this little thing that's kind of funny. Often when we have people over for dinner and we're sitting around waiting for the dinner to get ready, or we're sitting at the table talking, we do this thing I call the PlayDoh Compendium. And I actually bought some Play-Doh, and we sit around the table and everybody makes little objects out of Play-Doh. And this is like a little Play-Doh hammer that I made. And here's a Play-Doh candy cane. So I have this thing I call the Play-Doh Compendium. And here's a little snow shovel that I made out of Play-Doh. And also here's a snowman, a little Play-Doh snowman. So then I line these up on the windowsill, and it's kind of funny. And sometimes when people come over, we say, okay, here's some Play-Doh, you make something. And then we have this whole collection of our guests, contributing to the Play-Doh Compendium. So if you can sometimes do some silly things, some little funny things, I think that's really good for communication, to keep it lighthearted. And it's a good form. It's a good form of playfulness that keeps things flowing. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. So, all right. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sandra Ray, and she may have a few things to contribute about communication, and then we'll get breathing with the mantra. Okay?
Okay. The only thing I would add to the 8-minute process is after the person that's the most upset should share first, and then the other person listens, like you said. When the second person shares, you don't really need to comment on what the other one said. That is not the purpose. You should share whatever's going on with you, which may or may not be related to what they said. So you don't want to debate what they said. You want to share what's going on with you. And you'd be surprised how good it is, to be heard. Oprah Winfrey, they asked Oprah Winfrey, what is the main thing you learned after 25 years of doing your show? And she said one sentence: She said, people just want to be heard. And one of you mentioned that about listening. That is true. People want to be heard. So the 8 minutes process is so good because you're really hearing each other. And again, I want to stress the highest thought game. Instead of arguing about a position, what you want to do is come up with the highest spiritual thought. And the way you do that, I'm going to review that again because it's so important, is you start out by going for solution. See, the ego doesn't want a solution. The ego is addicted to conflict. So the ego is going to make up an argument and, always want a conflict. So this game, the highest spiritual thought game, I learned this from Babaji. I've never heard anything as good. You have a disagreement. So you sit down and you said, what is the solution that we both can agree on? So let's say Marcus gives his position, which is the highest thought he can come up with, and I give the highest thought I can come up with. And we keep going until we get a thought that we both like. Okay, and I don't care if he gets the highest thought. If he gets the highest thought, which he often does, I'm happy. I just want the highest thought. I don't, the highest thought is the most positive, the most loving, the most productive, and it feels the best in your body. And you're relieved when it's there. So if he gets the highest thought, I gladly go up to his thought. If I get the highest thought, I channel it because maybe I'm a little clearer that day. Then he goes up to my thought. Maybe the 5-year-old in your house can channel the highest thought. You don't care who gets it. Now, if you get 2 thoughts and they're both high and you can't agree which is the right one, you don't argue about that. You say, well, let's meditate and see which one. And then you're going to go for a solution. The highest thought is the solution. Now, this game really prevents arguments, and we teach it to everybody, but they go on arguing because they forget to play this game. This is the ultimate communication game, in my opinion, and it's actually fun. It's a lot more fun than arguing. Arguing brings down your frequency. When your frequency is low, you attract weird shit, pardon me, but you attract crap when your frequency is low. So you've got to take responsibility to keep your frequency high. And, you've got to have a mate who also wants to play this game, the highest spiritual thought game. If they don't, well, that's a problem. And I once had this guy I fell in love with too soon, and he was wealthy, and I was a bit dazzled. So I moved in with him too soon. Okay, I'm unpacking my bags, and he starts picking a fight with me. And believe it or not, my Course in Miracles lesson that day was I could see peace instead of this. So I said to him, hey, I'm not going to argue with you. And he got so mad, he stormed out of the house. And I thought, oh my God, I made a horrible mistake. Guess what? I just said, okay, I don't care what my mother says. I don't care what my friends say. I'm packing my bags. I've made a mistake. I am not going to keep living with this guy. I am going to pass the test of peace. Okay, so he came back in and he said, well, I thought it over and, you're right. I told him I didn't want to have any fights. He said, but I can't live like that. Can you believe it? He admitted that he couldn't live with arguing. I said, I see that. That's why I'm packing my bags. So I lived with him 2 hours, and the Course in Miracles says, you're nowhere till you pass the test of peace. And the test of peace is, are you at peace all the time? And is everyone around you at peace all the time? And you are nowhere unless you can pass that test, it says. So communication should lead to peace. Okay, you guys, time to breathe. Everybody can lay down now. We're going to put on the mantra. Which one are we playing, Marcus?
River of Grace.
Okay, he wants to play River of Grace. And if some of you are new, as I know a couple of you were, these mantras are sung by Babaji devotees. They're very powerful, so you get the Babaji energy. And they're all praises to God. So it doesn't matter if they're in Sanskrit and you can't understand what they're saying. They're all praises to God. When you're in a state of praise, that's a healing vibration. Praise is the first step of healing. Also, faith is another thing required for healing. So those of you that want healing, you have to have the faith you can be healed, and you should be doing the praise. That's why it's so good to breathe, to these mantras, because you're not only working on your breath and releasing stuff from your subconscious, you're taking in the praise of the mantra. So it's a dynamite combination.
I want to say this about communication, that these mantras are communication too. They're communication to the divine and from the divine to us. So that's really the highest form of communication, is the time we spend in communion or communication with our Creator. And so commonly we call that prayer or meditation. And that's where we receive, you know, the very high messages that are going to direct our life. You know, lesson 233 in the course is, I give my life to God to guide today. Well, that's a form of communication. When we're listening for the guidance, and through these mantras, we will often hear messages, you know, when we're breathing, listening to the mantras, we get an insight, we get a direction, we get a certainty about something. So this is really, you know, when we talk about communication in a relationship, your first relationship is with yourself and your Creator, right? So prayer, meditation, mantra breathing, these are all forms of communication where we're opening those channels to get the guidance, to get the clarity. And yeah, it's a great practice. And we often tell people, even just simply getting a mala, you know, and saying Om Namah Shivaya a number of rounds a day, that's also a form of prayer and communication with the divine. And you would be amazed at how much clarity comes to you when you have a regular practice of reciting mantras. They call it japa yoga in India. Jap is like recitation of the divine word, and they do them on the beads. And, you know, even in Western religious traditions, they have rosary beads, and, you know, a lot of people use those for prayer. And so it's a good way of opening up those channels of communication with the divine.